In December 1972, a 7-year-old boy disappeared while walking home from school. There were no screams, no witnesses, and no signs of a struggle. One moment he was just another child heading home with the routine certainty of an ordinary afternoon, and the next, he was gone. His name was Steven Stayner. For his family, the disappearance felt unreal at first. Children wandered off sometimes. Maybe he had taken a different route. Maybe he stopped at a friend's house. But as minutes turned into hours, worry became fear. They searched the streets, called neighbors, and checked every place a child might hide or play. By nightfall, panic had taken hold. Police were called. Volunteers gathered. Flashlights swept through fields and roads while his parents waited for someone to say they had found him. But no one did. Days stretched into weeks. Weeks into months. The search grew quieter. Not because people stopped caring, but because there was nothing left to follow. Posters hung in shop windows and on telephone poles. His photograph became a symbol of unanswered questions. Over time, the ink faded, the paper curled, and the world moved on the way it always does. Hope didn't disappear, but it became something fragile, something painful to hold onto for too long. Most missing children are never found. Their stories end in uncertainty. But Steven's story did not follow that pattern. The man who took him did not rely on violence in that moment. Instead, he used something far more effective: trust. He spoke calmly and told Steven that his mother had been hurt and needed him. For a child raised to believe adults tell the truth, it didn't sound like danger. It sounded like urgency. Within minutes, Steven was inside a car, driving away from the only life he had ever known. The man's name was Kenneth Parnell. Parnell didn't treat the kidnapping like a crime in the beginning. He treated it like an adoption. He gave Steven a new name, Dennis, and told neighbors the boy was his son. He built a story detailed enough that few people questioned it. To outsiders, the situation looked ordinary, a father and son trying to live quietly. But for Steven, nothing about it was normal. Survival meant adapting. He learned when to stay silent, when to obey, and when to disappear emotionally. He realized quickly that resistance only made things worse. So he did what many children trapped in trauma learn to do. He endured. He created a version of himself that could survive the situation while protecting the part of him that still remembered home. Years passed. Steven attended school under his false identity. He played with neighborhood kids. He answered to the name Dennis. On the surface, his life looked like any other boy's. Teachers saw a quiet student. Neighbors saw a reserved child. No one saw the truth he carried inside. Because deep down, Steven never forgot who he really was. He wasn't Dennis. He was Steven. That truth lived inside him like a small, stubborn flame. It flickered quietly through the years, refusing to go out no matter how much time passed. It was the one piece of his past no one could take from him. And eventually, that memory would guide him toward a decision that would change everything. By 1980, Steven was 14 years old. He had spent nearly half his life under Parnell's control. The outside world barely remembered the missing child he once was. To strangers, he was simply another teenager trying to find his place in the world. Then one day, everything changed. Parnell brought home another child, a 5-year-old boy named Timmy White. The moment Steven saw him, something inside him shifted. He recognized the fear in the boy's eyes, the confusion, the silence, the desperate hope that someone might help him. Because Steven had once been that child, he knew exactly what Timmy was feeling, even if Timmy couldn't say it yet. For years, Steven's thoughts had been focused on survival, staying safe, staying unnoticed, making it through each day without drawing attention. But now, his perspective changed. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking only about himself. He was thinking about what would happen if he did nothing. He realized that Timmy's life would follow the same path his own had taken. The same loss of identity, the same stolen years, the same quiet disappearance from the world. Timmy would lose his name, his family, and the chance to grow up in the life he was meant to have. Steven understood something powerful in that moment. He couldn't change what had happened to him, but he could change what happened next. For days, he wrestled with the decision. Escape meant risk. It meant uncertainty. It meant stepping into a world that had continued without him for years. He didn't know how his family would react. He didn't know if anyone would even believe him. But staying meant watching another child lose everything. Eventually, the choice became unavoidable. Steven wasn't just planning to leave. He was planning to save someone. One morning, he told Parnell he was taking Timmy to school. There was nothing suspicious about the request. It sounded like routine, like something that had happened many times before. But Steven already knew this walk would be different from all the others. Instead of heading toward the school, he led Timmy somewhere else. A police station. There was no dramatic chase and no confrontation. Just a teenage boy walking through the doors with a frightened child beside him, asking quietly to speak to an officer. At first, the police didn't know what to make of the story. Steven spoke calmly, explaining who he was, how long he had been gone, and why he had come back now. Then he gave them his real name, Steven Stayner. The name triggered something in the system. Files were reopened. Records checked. A missing child case from 7 years earlier suddenly wasn't cold anymore. Calls were made. Families contacted. And within hours, the truth began unfolding in a way no one expected. Steven's parents learned their son was alive. Not only alive, but responsible for saving another child from the same nightmare he had lived through. When Steven reunited with his family, it wasn't a perfect movie ending. Years of separation don't disappear overnight. Life had changed. People had grown. Emotions were complicated. But one truth stood above everything else. A boy who had once been powerless had chosen courage over fear. And that decision had saved 2 childhoods instead of losing one. Steven never thought of himself as a hero. To him, he had simply done what felt right. But to the world, his story became something much bigger. It showed that courage isn't about strength or age. It's about the moment someone decides they won't let darkness win. His actions changed how people viewed missing child cases. They reminded families never to give up hope, even after years. And they showed that sometimes the quietest people make the most powerful choices. Because sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they're just children who decide they won't let another life disappear the way theirs almost did. And when they finally step forward, they don't just change their own story. They change someone else's future too.